Joined live now by George Abbey, former director of the Johnson Space Center and fellow in space policy at the Baker Institute at Rice University. Thank you for joining us here. So we have seen a great deal of cooperation of late between the Russian Space Agency and with NASA. Washington wants to sanction Moscow. Are we starting to see that now creep into the cooperation that we've had so far between the space agencies?
Well, I think if NASA takes some action, as I understand they are going to, it's going to be very disappointing and certainly adversely affect our ability to cooperate in space. And we really have been able to work together in space, and it hadn't been a political issue. Now we're starting to make it a political issue.
So we have a political issue on the ground here, but do you think that reaches up to the level of the International Space Station? I mean, in terms of the men and women who are up there right now, do you think they really, it matters to them what goes on down here?
No, our work together in space, we're working with common goals and objectives, and we work together with Russia very well. They've been excellent partners, and we have worked well to put the International Space Station together, and we have been cooperating ever since we joined together on the space station, and it's gone extremely well. And our astronauts are training in Russia. They're well trained when they fly, and Russia not only launches our astronauts, but Russia provides a rescue vehicle for the space station for the 6 months duration our astronauts are up there. And then they also return them back to Earth safely. And when we have been flying on the Soyuz, it's been a very reliable spacecraft, and it's very essential to our operations on the station.
Now, this is a fairly recent development here, but among the scientific community, as far as you're aware, or you and your colleagues you talk to about these sort of things, what's the reaction so far to these latest political steps intruding into the realm of science and innovation?
It's been very disappointing. I think everyone I've spoken with, my fellow colleagues, both engineers and scientists, are quite disappointed. We don't think it's a very wise decision, and certainly can affect the safety of operations in space. When you're flying humans in space on an international space station, you want to enhance cooperation and enhance communications. And so when you start taking actions to lessen those communications, it's not a very safe action, and it's not a very wise thing to do.
Now, often when these sort of things happen, there are reciprocal effects. If NASA says we're not going to deal with the Russian Space Agency anymore, and they say very well, we're not going to deal with NASA anymore, and it's, as we understand, going to be a few years before NASA gets its own facilities in the U.S. Off the ground, so to speak, where would that leave the U.S. space program for the next couple of years?
The United States right now is totally dependent on our Russian partners. When we stopped flying the space shuttle, we did away with our access to take humans to space, and we rely completely upon Russia. And Russia does a very good job of flying our crewmen up to the space station. So if that were to end, the United States human spaceflight program would not really be implemented in any fashion until probably 2017 or much later.
And finally, we have no idea, nobody does, how long this impasse is going to last. What immediate effects do you think we could see in the short term from this kind of deadlock that we have going on down here?
Well, I hope we don't see any real effect in our interactions on the International Space Station. I think it's essential that we continue to work together and work together well. And certainly my Russian colleagues and my colleagues in NASA who are on the space station feel very strongly that that needs to continue. I would be very disappointed if it starts carrying over and affecting those operations. But there are some activities over and above the International Space Station where really we ought to be cooperating with Russia in space. And evidently that is going to be adversely affected. It's not the right thing to do.
All right, George Abbey, former director of the Johnson Space Center, current fellow in the space policy of the Baker Institute at Rice University in Houston, Texas. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.